And welcome back to part 5 of Migration. We've got a lot to talk about today, so we are going to jump right in. As we've been talking about in this series, we are pattern-seeking animals. We are creatures that are constantly trying to avoid chaos, and we're always looking for a streamlined, edited version of that chaos through narratives and storytelling. So we're going to take a look at an audio clip to start out with today. This clip came to us, we believe, originally from TikTok user Emily Sophie. And I want you to listen to this clip, and I want you to think about whether you are hearing the word brainstorm or green needle. Here's the audio clip. Have a listen. Okay, so there's that audio clip. Now I'm going to play it for you one more time, but this time I want you to put only the word in your head. Green needle. Got that? When you listen to this audio clip this time, only listen to the word green needle. Here it is again. Okay, did you hear it? Now we're going to play it one last time, but this time I want you to only listen to the word brainstorm from what you are hearing. Think of the word brainstorm this time. Of course, you can go back and replay that clip all you like and keep toying with what it is that you're hearing. Well, what is it? What is that weird electronic voice actually saying? Is it green needle or is it brainstorm? The truth of the matter is that it's both or neither. What you're hearing is just a chaotic jumble of electronic noise for the most part that can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. But again, we are pattern-seeking animals, so your brain is trying to pick out one particular sound out of what you are hearing there. So that's how we are constantly turning chaos into order. And of course, as pattern-seeking animals, we certainly do not like conundrums like this. We want to know, well, which is it? Is it this way or is it the other way? Is reality like this or is it like that? We don't like ambiguous answers. We don't like chaos. We always want to know what is really going on. The truth of the matter is that in order to dive into these powers that we've been discussing, like lucid dreaming, like spontaneous healing or astral projection, we do have to dive below our habitual need to put our world in context with storylines, with narratives. And so today, in this episode of Migration, we are going to discuss another technique that's going to take us headfirst into this chaos. We are going to be diving into this world that lives below our nicely constructed narratives and storylines, so stay tuned. With over 30 years of first-hand experience with lucid dreaming, radical healing, astral projection, and paranormal states of consciousness, I've come to develop a unified theory about the mechanics behind all of these fantastic powers, which everyone has access to. I've learned that our consciousness is not a localized phenomenon. It only appears to be an isolated point of awareness living somewhere behind our eyes, because we've latched onto stories that have convinced us this is the case since we were born into this world. It is our very attachment to these narratives that appears to bind us to the cage of the physical mind and body. Through this series, we're embarking on an adventure to explore this relationship we carry with storylines and symbolism, so that we can, once and for all, dispel this faulty notion that our awareness, our true identity, has ever been limited and localized within the brain. I am not speaking of a supernatural gift that only the holy or the gifted can tap into. In fact, I'm personally an atheist. I'm referring to a perfectly natural phenomenon that most people won't realize until their physical body passes away. But why wait, when you can take advantage of your incredible potential now? Welcome to a journey to a brand new landscape. Welcome to migration. Our stories truly are the glue that hold our world together. In the last several episodes, I've been asking you to start paying attention to what your operating narrative is in the moment. What is the story that is holding your world in context for you, moment by moment? And we've been talking about that because, again, my ultimate goal is to try to teach you how to realign yourself with a power, with your own source, which again lives below linear thought, linear rationalization. It is the same power that has been talked about in our spiritual and holy books for generations past. It's the same power that our shaman and our gurus and our priests have been referring to for thousands of years. One of my first suggestions to you was that you start stopping throughout the day and staring at your hand, holding your attention to your hand for a few moments while you ask yourself, what is your operating context right now? How did you get to be where you are right in that moment? What is your operating narrative? I also asked you to start noticing that even during your free time, even when you are not in a zone where you have to be planning, where you have to be thinking about the future at all, that you are almost never present. Your mind is always dividing your reality into a couple of different visions. On the one hand, you sort of see and hear and you pick up the environment that is presently around you, but also there's sort of this, as I called it, an overlay of a completely other reality that's going on in the back of your head that can truly blind you to what is in front of you. And so now we're going to dive into that very space in which our narratives take hold. We might think of this as a loading zone upon which all energy and matter dwell. You might recall in the movie The Matrix, when they need to load gear or supplies or weapons or anything, they enter this loading program first. It's sort of this blank, white, formless space where they can step into and then call up whatever it is that they need. So right now we're going to learn how to step into this kind of space where we have all of the many potential possibilities lying at our fingertips. So I want you to try something, and you can do this anywhere. You can do this at home or when you're out walking, which is the way I'm going to describe this. I do this technique when I'm walking, but you can take the spirit of this lesson and you can adapt it to your own needs. The most important thing is that wherever and whenever you do this, that you are in a space where you can be free from distraction. This is definitely a time where you have got to at least put your phone on silent. This is not going to take a long time. We're only talking about 15 to 20 minutes to start these lessons out at first. I promise that the world will go on without you if you can just step away from your phone for a little bit. What is most important is your intention for what you're about to do. This is not a time for you to go walk your dog. This is not a time for you to mull over that problem at work or to think about your finances or to think about that one problem that you're dealing with in your relationship. That is not what this practice is for. You're going to go below all of those problems, all of those other storylines that you are dealing with, so that you actually can get a better perspective of all of them. So don't let your mind whip up some ridiculous excuse that, for some reason why you don't have time to do this little practice for 15 or 20 minutes. This is a time for you. So it's really very simple. To begin with, you are simply going for a walk, perhaps around your neighborhood for just 15, 20 minutes. Simple as that. When you begin this walk, I want you to first bring your attention to, again, where your mind is taking you, that how habitual your mind is at trying to pull you into one story or another. It wants you to think about anything besides what is in front of you. It doesn't want you to be fully present. It doesn't want to be pulled out of its control of the context of your world from moment to moment. So simply be aware that when your mind is telling you, I need to think about this problem. Wait a minute, I need to plan this one thing. Just notice how often your mind is trying to hook you, trying to snare you, and pull you away from the present moment. You don't need to do anything about these distractions. You don't need to try to solve it, and you certainly don't need to beat yourself up about it. You simply just need to pay attention to how strange the mind is, how it is constantly trying to pull you away from what's in front of you. Especially when you notice things like your mind telling you, oh, this is boring, this is so boring. When you sense that sort of thing, you know that you're on to something. The mind does not want to pay attention to what's going on in front of it. Again, it feels like it is losing control. It feels like there's nothing to hold on to. It doesn't have anything. You're not giving it anything to mull about. You're not giving it any input to organize and to make linear. So especially for those of you who have been following this series or have been reading my books that this series is based on, hopefully you're now beginning to get pretty familiar with what this feels like when your mind is trying to snare you, when your mind is trying to pull you away from the present moment. So here's the point where we're going to take that, we're going to stab it right in the heart. So this is what you're going to do. As you walk, as you move through your neighborhood or on the trail that you're on, I want you to try to drop your focus from all of the objects around you, from your environment. I want you to stop noticing all of the specific trees or the houses or the cars or even the sounds around you. And I want you to instead realign your focus with the distance that is between you and all the other objects in your environment. The distance and not the objects. So you are feeling the space that lies between you and everything else in your environment. If you're at home, you are feeling that emptiness that is between you and the furniture, you and the walls and the ceiling. I want you to just immerse yourself in the focus of being aware of emptiness. It's as simple as that. And as you do this, again, your mind is going to fight this. It's going to try to pull you away. It's going to even say things like, again, if this is boring, or it's going to tell you, I can't do this. That in and of itself is just another narrative that the brain is desperately trying to cling to. And you'll see this pop up again and again in these practices where the mind is going, this is crazy, I can't do this because of this, this, and this. And it'll whip up some narrative. Well, I could never do this. I was never focused as a child. I was never taught how to do this, or I've been on medication for ADHD, or on and on. All the reasons that we give ourselves, that why we cannot do this. And again, we are focused on the narrative and not the space in which that narrative lives. So when you see these things, when you see these distractions, when you see yourself being pulled away from this attention to the nothingness around you, don't curse yourself again. Just gently bring your attention back to the present, to where you are. Bring your focus back to the space around you. So as you do this, I want you to try to pay attention also to the quiet that is below all of the noises in your environment, whether you're outside or inside. All of the sounds that you're hearing, I want you to try to also realign your focus to the silence that all of those sounds are riding on. So, at first, you may notice that you're only able to hold your attention to the space and the emptiness around you for a few moments at a time. That is okay. Don't beat yourself up about this. If you can do it for 1 second, that means that you can do it for 2 seconds, and eventually you'll be able to do it for longer and longer and on and on. So stay with this. If you can only do it for a few moments, that is okay. Each time you dive into this space where you can release yourself from your internal dialogue, from all of the planning and the thinking, all of your many linear narratives. Each time you do this, you are drilling down a little deeper below the surface of all of our context that holds our world in place. So this is tough stuff. We're drilling below narratives and years of conditioning. So take it easy on yourself. It's okay. Just take it one step at a time. We are doing here nothing short of training ourselves how to release from our habitual need for order and linear thought. We are releasing our attention from all of the things and people and objects around us, because that's where all of our narratives lie. All of our stories, all of our narratives are, of course, wrapped around the things in our life, the people, the objects, our belongings, our animals, objects in general. We don't have any stories, we don't have any narratives wrapped around emptiness. That is the one thing that does not have a narrative. So that's why we are realigning our attention to the space around us, because inherently it has no story. It is the loading zone or the empty space upon which all stories thrive. And I want you, of course, to pay attention to how you feel when you come back from this practice, how you feel when you come back from this walk. What kind of state of mind do you find yourself in? Talk about that in the comments below. And of course, always keep in mind that I do everything I can to try to respond so far to everyone who's reached out to me who has a comment or a question. I will try to get around to each person who does want to share what's going on as they follow this practice. I find it interesting. I am engaged. I want to hear from you. But keep in mind that the longer you do this, the more that you are able to hold your attention to this empty space, the more you're going to start seeing the world from this perspective of this emptiness, from this loading zone, from pure consciousness that we're talking about. This space which we are realigning our attention to is the nature of consciousness. Everything comes and goes within this space, but the space is forever. It always remains the same. Within this emptiness, this is where seeds become trees, where bodies are born and die, where planets are manifested and then blow apart. It's the emptiness upon which the entire world comes and goes. And the more you are able to realign yourself with this emptiness, the more you're able to feel the space around you and within you, by the way. That's another thing. When you are doing this practice, make sure that you are also focused on the space within you. Physics will tell us very clearly that we are mostly empty space, so that emptiness is not just between you and all the objects. That emptiness is everywhere. It permeates everything. The more you bring your attention to that emptiness, to that blank zone, to that loading zone, the more you're going to start not only just detaching from all of the phenomena that is going on within that space, all of the stories that are going on within that space, you're also going to take on a greater appreciation, strangely enough, to everything that is in your world, there's going to be a beauty that's actually going to come through. Some people have this notion that, well, if I'm just focused on, emptiness and nothingness, then I'm just going to be this wandering, blank-headed sort of zombie. It's actually the exact opposite. You gain more of a focus and you gain much more of an appreciation and a beauty for everything that is in that space, all of the comings and goings. And yet at the same time, you do start more detaching from this particular story that is just happening with you, with, this story of your body as it has moved from birth onto death. It does not become quite as important anymore. And this is something that people who work in this field, lucid dreamers and astral projectors, whatever you want to call them, they almost uniformly agree that they don't really have much of a concern about death anymore. So that's another thing that will come up for you eventually down the road, that the idea that also your body, along with every other phenomena that is taking place within this emptiness around you, it is always shifting. Matter and energy are always moving around and shape shifting. You start becoming less concerned with those particular formations, and right now we are just in the formation of our physical body right now. But the more we realign ourselves with this space, the more we will be able to see that, oh yeah, this body is also, it's just another thing that's coming and going within this larger zone of consciousness, which I am, which is our true nature. And again, we are realigning ourselves with that which is observing all of the many different states of awareness that we can experience, whether we're talking about a state of awareness where we are in a lucid dream state, or we're astrally projecting, or we are even perhaps under the influence of a drug, or we're drunk, or asleep, or any of the many different kinds of states of awareness that can happen on the surface. Below it all, there's always this subtle awareness, this consciousness that is always observing all of these different states. So, in lucid dreaming, we say that we're kind of going from playing just a bit part, a character that is being strung along by a story, to becoming the real author of what is happening for us. And this is how this is achieved. We are realigning our perspective to that which is always aware, that which is always awake, that which never sleeps. And when we do that, it doesn't matter what's happening with our body. It doesn't matter what's happening with our chemical composition, whether we're under the influence of something or not, which we'll talk about psychedelics and what more down the road. But when the more that you realign yourself with this emptiness, with this pure awareness, you'll stop seeing all of the seemingly different states of awareness, and you'll start seeing that which is awake all the time. The more you do this practice, the more you engage with focusing on your pure consciousness and not letting yourself being constantly pulled away by another narrative, the more you are going to be able to realize that how much you have just been sold into a bunch of stories about how things are, about how things work. Your stories have kept you in a cage where every day of your life often seems like it's just the same day repeating itself. For many people, that's what their experience is like. Their lives don't seem different. They don't seem full of any sort of inspiration. And this is how we tap right back into the very source of all of our power. So again, we've all been sold into a bunch of stories about how things work. The same thing happened to me. The same thing happened to everyone. It's why we're here. We're here to wake up from all of them. So again, don't beat yourself up along the way and begrudge how how stupid you were for your past mistakes of, my God, I can't believe I used to believe that. I can't believe I used to identify with that. I can't believe I used to think that about myself. That's okay. But it's time to wake up. It's time to grow up at this point in our development. So here's one of the antidotes. I've just handed you a very valuable key, and it is subtle, and it's not easy. It's something that you have to stick with. You're going to have to keep going over this over and over. I'm at the point now in my life where when I do these meditative walks, I am sometimes gone for hours now at this point where I just, drop all sense of direction and linear thinking and narrative for a while. And it is where true focus and sobriety lives. So keep at it. Don't give up. Don't listen to any of those stories that your mind is telling you that you can't do it, or oh, this is boring, or I can't even, I can't walk away from my phone or my stories or my information for a few moments. Don't get sold into that. So stick with it, and until next time, thanks for watching.